welcome to Hastings Public Library's virtual book club. This month for July, we are reviewing Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. And Erica and Joseph are joining us. This is Sam, and I'm Dana. And Erica is going to lead with the questions. Go ahead, Erica.
Okay, let's start off. Question 1, do you think Adam would have ended up differently had he not been lost, and how?
Oh, yeah, definitely. He was led in more of a Christian home. He wasn't given a lot of negatives and, destroy this. And don't you think?
I do. I think he used all of his, well, I don't know if you'd say power, but all of the gifts that he had gotten. I don't know. He was halfway Christian and halfway, I don't know if you want to say evil, but
Bad boy.
Yeah. Where he was able to think things through and do the right thing.
Yeah.
Adam was impressive, I thought.
I guess I sort of saw it as though, like, what they were showing by having Aziraphale and Crowley focus on Warlock the whole time was that even when you have both sides sort of trying to make this not really Antichrist figure, it sort of turns out the same way as Adam, where it's like even and both sides are the same. So the lack of influence was almost what made him such a good person in the end to make those decisions. So
I'd have to agree. I think he would have turned out roughly the same, except if he grew up with Aziraphale and Crowley, the difference would have been maybe he would have been more, it would have been weirder to the average person. It would have been more glaring, the complete opposites he grew up with.
It's hard to say.
Secondly, what do you think of the relationship between Aziraphale and Crowley?
I don't think they could live without each other. I really don't. I think that they're, I don't know, bosom buddies.
I love their characters, and I love how they complement each other. They reminded me of a complete person. One was half and one was the other. And even though they were supposed to be kind of pitted against each other, one was good and one was supposed to be bad. Crowley had good parts about him, and Aziraphale, not necessarily bad parts, but just like any person, he was fallible and maybe made, I don't know if I want to say shady decisions, but what comes to mind is when he owns a bookstore, but he makes it completely impossible for people to buy his stuff because he wants to keep it. That's a little bit of greed and selfishness and things like that. He didn't do it in a mean way, like striking someone down if they entered his store, but I don't know, neither one of them was perfect. And I don't know, I found their relationship very comedic a lot of the times.
I loved reading their relationship, their bond. It's a great dynamic, really enjoyable to watch unfold. Reflect on the secondary characters in this book. Which ones did you connect with? Which were your favorites? Why?
I like the crazy nun. The nun in the beginning that mixed the babies up and then didn't go with the order. She stayed, and
what did she do? Like
the business practices, but they were shooting each other and
oh yeah, they were paintball. Yeah, the paint gun. Yeah.
I liked her.
And that was funny. It took me a minute to realize that they'd hypnotized her when they were talking to her. But
What was her name?
I really liked Anathema Device. Like the sort of idea of like getting this book of prophecies and being like, okay, they're coming true. How can I figure out how they're coming true was very, I'd love to do that in real life, like see all that happen. So that was very interesting to see, and how it's part of her heritage and she just had to figure it out. That was really interesting to me.
I liked Anathema too. But I also like Newt in a way, just because I could relate to, he was very naive, but he was very willing to play along, and he wanted to fit in, and he wanted to do something important and special that he'd never done before, I think. Especially when he hears this beautiful woman and it's kind of prophesied that they're supposed to be together. He was pretty excited about that prophecy. And I thought it was kind of funny that he was not the weaker of the two, but you could tell that Anathema, she kind of knew more of what was going on, and Newt just kind of followed along. It was just funny, I thought.
What are your thoughts on the theme that no demon could even think of the horrible things humans do to each other? I think that makes a lot of sense. Because at least with demons, like, the purpose is to be horrible, whereas humans come up with really trivial reasons to excuse being horrible.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's humans thinking they're doing something good, and that turns like evil, whether through different motivations or whatnot. So yeah, it's that sort of lack of intention that makes it sort of truly.
I thought it was very profound, yes, because I see this, when you're driving to work or wherever you're going, you have the best of intentions, but you might be getting there in the wrong way. Like if people zip around you or run a red light, they crash into someone and kill someone. That was never their intention, but it was just being so focused on themselves, and I don't know, not
Instead of the
necessarily a
world around.
lack of care for others, but
kind of. I mean, that is kind of, because
where we like to help people, but then we, if they're in our way, we just give them a good shove. Or a different example that I can think of is when I first moved here, I was on a road, and that road was close to a church, and this car just was right on me, sped around me in a no passing zone, and just screeched up to the church and turned, into church. They were late for church, so they were driving just like crazy people. And that just struck me kind of like, I don't know if church is going to help you today, buddy, because just because you go doesn't necessarily mean you make the right decisions and treat people right. That's kind of what I yeah. So I thought that was really profound, and true that people can think up some horrible things to do to each other.
yeah.
I don't have that kind of creativity.
Well, I thought it was interesting how it's not just even the horrible things, but Aziraphale and Crowley talk about the things they don't know who they belong to.
Yeah.
Like, I think one example, like meter maids and stuff, like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's just this sort of mixed up thing that humans have created, and maybe there's not a fault for it in the divine world. It's just human nature.
Yeah.
Speaking of the divine plan, do you think that in the world of the novel there is a divine plan? Were the events in the book part of some larger plan unknown by any other characters, or is there no plan at all? I would say that there is. It's just that no one else knows about it. It's like in that one paragraph when they describe the divine plan perception of it as everyone playing poker with God, blindfolded in a dark room, and you can't see your cards and no one knows the stakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like if there is one, it's so hidden away to like not only humans, but also like the angels and demons themselves. They seem to be, they have a lot of agency, it feels like, whereas Aziraphale and Crowley can make up, like, control this boy's life and do what they want to do. And it seems like they have some free will. If there's a bigger divine plan, it's really high concept and yeah, not known by anyone maybe.
Yeah.
And I agree with that, just because at the end, the demons and the angels, everybody that was there kind of knew what was going to happen. But then when he flat out said, no, I decide this isn't going to happen, nobody knew how to respond to that, because that was their plan.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Were there any concepts in the book that took you by surprise?
No, I mean, not really.
Mm,
Well, no.
I don't know. I think you see a book like this, Good Omens, and you see the angel and the devil, and you're like, oh gosh, is this going to be something I want to read? Or like, I don't feel like it's super blasphemous. Yeah, it's definitely playing fun with like sort of like Christian faith and like God and demons and all that. But I think it treats it pretty respectfully, and I wasn't totally shocked at any point. So
Yeah, there were a lot of good points and a lot of theology and things that I had thought of, but I hadn't put it in the right perspective before. I don't know if that makes sense. And this isn't technically a concept, but I have to say it before I forget it. The part when they're at the bar, do you remember that, Aziraphale and Crowley? And then they start, I can't remember if they're debating or what it is, but they've both had one too many drinks.
Oh, and
They start slurring and forgetting what they're saying. But then in the middle of it, they'd say something completely profound, and then they couldn't remember the word they were going to finish the sentence with. I think that was a really good depiction of really how people behave, that we're trying, but we make mistakes and screw it up, but not intentionally.
Kind of like how the book will bring up things and then bring it up later. Like even with the forgetting things, Crowley was like, whatever water falls off of. And then later in the book, he's randomly like, ducks. That's what water slides off of. It's ducks.
Yes. That was funny. Yeah. Yep.
Good Omens is a satire, a literary work which uses wit, especially irony, sarcasm, and ridicule, to attack the vices and follies of humankind. Does the book's sense of humor appeal to you? Why or why not? I loved it. I thought it was great. It felt respectful of the ideas of the source material while also poking fun at the absurdities of the source material. To me, it felt maybe more like maybe leaning more towards a parody than a satire.
yeah.
I agree. I love the book too. And one reason it appealed to me, just like you were saying, it didn't really, it took it seriously and it didn't really poke fun at the Bible and things like that. But then again, it kind of did. The one thing I can remember is in Aziraphale's bookshop, he had all those special Bibles that no one else had. And someone had gone into this particular Bible and changed words or removed words. And like in the 10 Commandments, what was it, number 7? Thou shalt commit adultery instead of thou shalt not. Just funny things like that you'd have to have that one particular book to find that, I thought that was funny.
Well, I like how
that was one of the
everything
ones that was real. That was an actual misprint. Yeah. So a few of the Bibles he has actually do exist. Like the one missing the word not and thou shalt not commit adultery.
And I really thought it was funny and that everything turned into a Queen song.
On the radio,
Everything
was
on
the
the
best
radio.
hits of Queen.
Yep.
Beethoven's Bohemian Rhapsody.
yeah, it just, I feel like the authors in their writing, they sort of think of it from every angle and then sort of find the humor in each and every angle of it. And I think I really enjoy that, where it's the sort of looking at all the points and injecting a little bit of humor into each. So
Well, what else was neat too is that they've lived for what, thousands of years? I can't remember, but that they talk about this period in time and how much it has changed and how it was so much better in this time period. And then how, we focused a lot on the 80s, or the fact that Crowley drove a 29, was it a Shelby?
A
Or
Bentley.
a Roadster? It was
Yeah.
something like that, but
Wasn't it Bentley? What was it?
Wasn't
Was it
it?
a Bentley?
Yeah, it was a Bentley.
yeah, it was a Bentley. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look it up now.
yeah, just the way they sort of love being on Earth, but they're like these divine beings, and yet what humankind has sort of wrought and created is like so great to them that they want to be there. I think that's really good.
They also
Yeah,
have their favorite time periods, and also the ones they didn't enjoy at all. Like Crowley is like, I just slept through the 14th century. That was awful. We're just gonna take it out for the next 100 years.
I kind of wonder if they did the full collaboration, or was one of them Crowley and one of them
Oh,
wrote as Aziraphale, since it was
Interesting.
the two authors.
Hmm.
I don't, yeah,
thought.
Yeah.
it was a Bentley.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to write a book with another person. I know, I feel like I'm someone who wants to like take ownership of my like projects, and like having someone like write a book with me, I can't imagine.
That's why I wonder if they did, if like Neil Gaiman was Crowley and Terry Pratchett was, I can't say his name.
Aziraphale.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so that's how they
Sort of
had their
putting over.
ownership of their character, but yet they merged them
Yeah.
together. It'd be interesting to know.
Mhm.
What was your favorite character name from the book and why?
Gosh, the names were hard.
I really liked the name of the nun we mentioned earlier. It was like Sister Mary Loquacious
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
of the Chattering Order. Like
Satanic Nuns of Saint Beryl.
yeah.
Yes.
very
I love the chattering order. That was hilarious. I don't know. I really like the name of Aziraphale. Well, I like Crowley too, but I'd never heard of Aziraphale.
and
And
sort
it
of
was just-
that split between the two names. You have a very like recognizable like Crowley, that's like English last name, and then Aziraphale, the sort of otherworldly angel name, I guess. So
Yeah.
The feel of the names is very unique, and I enjoy them, like Aziraphale and Anathema.
mhm.
Mhm.
And the last name Device.
Yes.
That's like
Yeah, that was cool. Well, and Adam, just like Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite?
It would have to be Sister Mary Loquacious.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
The physical version of Good Omens includes footnotes for asides and references. How did you approach these footnotes? Do you think these added to the reading experience? I really enjoyed the footnotes. I loved them being there because, like, they'd almost make for like funny little sneaky aside comments, like as a reference to like this is why something is, or like if something serious is going on, it would say something to kind of undermine that point.
Mhm.
Well, like here on page 105, the little footnote, it says a 16th century halfwit, not related to any US president. I'm like, oh my God.
I think it's an interesting like tactic to use, because it's like you could just include them in the text, and like because a lot of it is that humor, like you said. But I think by putting it literally aside on the page, you have to sort of, you realize, oh, this isn't super necessary to the story, but it is kind of a funny moment I can sort of live in, and you don't get too lost in whatever the footnotes are saying, because it's not going to be so important to the main story.
Right. Yeah, it's easy to jump back in where you were in the main text.
And I'm very
It's
glad.
something you can-
I'm glad
Go
that
ahead.
they're footnotes as opposed to endnotes, and so you're not flipping back and forth all the time.
Yes. Yeah, I think
It
only
is
one
something-
ever ran over to the second page.
And it was something you could skip, or like you said, keep going, and it did add to the story.
Well, and I listened to it on Hoopla, and I loved that because he had the British accent. And so I can't remember, he would scream when they screamed, or he would talk like a little girl, or
Mhm.
it was just incredible. And then with the footnotes, he would just slow the tone and the pace down a little bit to make it footnote. And then you'd think something profound was coming. And then it was so witty off the wall that I'd hit, the back 10-second button a few times. I'm like, what? So it was funny. They added a lot to the story, but nothing at all, if that makes sense.
Would a real book like the nice and accurate prophecies of Agnes Nutter interest you? Why or why not?
I don't know,
never really followed.
like I said, I really would be really curious about that and sort of interpreting like what does it all mean, because Agnes was from so long ago, she can't know about all the modern technologies and stuff. So sort of interpreting all that, it seems like a fun puzzle to me.
It definitely, I would have to agree, seemed like a fun thing to have. And they did a good job of explaining it in the book that she would see things like very specific points of things happening in the future. She just had no context for what those things were. So even though she's telling you, she's not telling you directly, so you have to figure it out. Like what was one they reference in the book about was it Apple? And she was talking about what they thought was a real apple, but it was actually about the company Apple.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
Huh.
Yeah. Because at first I thought, why are you so confused if you have the whole book? But then I took it, I started thinking, it's like, well, if you wrote this hundreds of years ago, you don't know what technology is, or what a Jaguar would be, or anything like that. So you wouldn't be able to, you knew something fast was going to kill this person, but you had no idea it was not a mountain lion, it was actually a car. That was interesting. So it might be pretty interesting to read.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Good Omens is now a 31-year-old book. Does it hold up well in the modern day? What new changes or technologies feel missing from the book? I thought it held up pretty well for the modern day. I knew it was probably maybe late 19th century or 20th century. The parts
And I didn't even think about it.
I didn't either.
It didn't even occur to me that it could be that old.
Right? It feels much newer.
Yeah, because they made it sound like, 30 some years ago. Yeah, that would be in the 80s when Queen, but I thought they were just saying it to be comedic as far as that was the best era, 1980s, so.
And honestly, I think
I can
as
judge.
well.
Yeah,
Or
definitely.
it's still very iconic choices, both, I mean, classical music, of course, and Queen, so.
Yeah, I think the only way you'd know if it was kind of, I don't know if dated is really the right word, but like you'd have to think of like technicality of something like what was the character of the two her neighbors, the one that did the readings and the one that mentored Newt?
Madam Tracy and then Shadwell.
Madam Tracy and Shadwell, they have to share a phone. I'm assuming it's a landline, and landlines aren't really a thing anymore.
Yeah, that's sort of the one I came to.
But I guess I took it as it was set in the 80s.
Oh, yeah, that too.
I took it that way, that it was set during that time. It wasn't set in today's modern time.
And yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it feels, even though they don't really specifically reference times, it feels very set in like the late 80s, 1990s, like period. And I think you can read it that way and still have a very enjoyable reading experience.
Yeah, it's not so attached to like a certain specific period of time that you'd have to keep reminding yourself of that.
And you could tell they didn't have the cell phones. Kids were riding their bikes and playing and getting into trouble, and
They didn't have the video games at home.
no.
That's why I guess I assumed it was early to mid 80s.
I didn't even think about it. It seemed to be so broad. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of what the kids were doing, like the causing trouble and riding their bikes, it felt not so much that it wasn't that they didn't have technology, but just because like every neighborhood has that group of kids, like they are the them, and every neighborhood has the them.
Yeah, I think naming them the them was a very good choice because it's like, oh, I know that group. And yeah, I can't really put a name to them, but yeah, I know those children.
Yes. Like if you saw them riding down the street in your neighborhood, you'd probably think like, oh, it's them.
It's them.
Yeah. That is true. I love that. Yeah, that they named them the them. Yeah.
Well, we've gone through our questions. So any last thoughts, commentary, questions you thought while we've been discussing?
I did enjoy the book. To me, it was when I listened to it as well. And at times it became overwhelming because there was this going on. And it was like, whoa, wait a minute. Too much for my brain right here. But it was a good story. There were times I was laughing. It really was fun. And I didn't want to read it. But I did enjoy it.
I loved it. I don't know if I could even really like fully explain in words like everything I liked about it and why. I guess one of my main thoughts is I loved how they treated the four horsemen of the apocalypse, how they're motorcyclists, and how they had basically like an oblivious UPS driver like deliver them their, what would you call the things that they got?
They're like
Instruments or
Yeah,
talismans of the
instruments,
apocalypse.
they're their tools. that
Yes,
they
they're
got.
tools. Yes. And just like the writing behind them, like they didn't feel, I don't know, they weren't really evil. They were just here to do what they are and were bored to do, and they just having such a good time doing it. Like what in Famine's part, if someone pointed out to him that there were starving children in Africa, he would say, or he would be flattered that you noticed. Things like that.
Yeah. Well, and that is a concept. I'm glad you brought that up. That it really, when I was listening to it, because it was war, death, famine, and
Death, war,
Pollution.
famine, and pollution.
pollution. Yes, and how it was talking about three of you don't necessarily have to happen, but one of us does. That was like, wow. Yeah.
Which one?
Death.
But it happens every day.
Yeah.
Just not in big, well.
But you can, well, and I think what it was saying was not, I don't know, that we don't necessarily have to have famine. You might not face famine. You might not face pollution or war, but regardless, everyone's facing death. I thought that was just,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
I was doing laundry and I stopped and thought about it.
I had a thought, but I forgot it. It was tangentially related to that.
I liked how it was later mirrored in the group of kids with them, like, oh,
Yeah.
we're each one of those too, and they made up their crown and their scales, and
They juxtaposed.
Yeah.
Each one had a foil. That was great.
Yes.
Anything else? All right. Well, our next book club will be in August, and we will be reading After the Flood by Cassandra Montag. I hope I'm saying it right. Montag. And it is a available here at the library. You can stop in and get your book. And thank you for joining us, reviewing Good Omens. And we hope you guys have a great day. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.